Good evening, everyone. Whoa! Hello.
Hello, hello.
I will start by saying, let's congratulate the Downtown Arts District. What a great event this is. And I also want to give props, and I know that Mr. Kirkland, this will be the hardest part for me because he says I have to call him Douglas, and I just don't know if I can do it. But I know Douglas will agree with me. The ladies tonight are just stunning.
Stunning. Yes.
Stunning. Ladies, you have raised the roof tonight.
I wish I could photograph each one of them individually.
This is Orlando. You girls are bringing it. You are snap. Snap. Every one of you should be on the wall tonight. I just got to say that before we get started. All right, Douglas, I'm a little more comfortable. You know, I talk politics a lot of the time, and I won't ask you who you voted for. We don't have to go there.
Talk politics? What did you say?
I usually talk politics, but
yes, okay,
so I'm a little out of my element here.
Oh.
But I'm very excited. I knew within 10 seconds. How is the microphone? Let's make sure everybody's comfortable. Is it too loud?
Too loud?
Let's make sure everybody's comfortable. Okay. Is that a little better? Okay. Thank you. I want to make sure that everybody is enjoying the experience. Okay. When I first began, I spoke to Douglas for about 15 seconds. I was a little nervous. I'm a little outside my element. You know, I do news and politics and things like that, and I saw a lot of camera bags in the room. And I got a little nervous about that. I was hoping I was going to ask the right questions for all of you tonight. And within 10 seconds of meeting this gentleman, he is so warm and gracious and forthcoming. And I immediately thought, oh, this is going to be fun. So I hope you all enjoyed as much as I
want to be comfortable.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
That's what the wine is for, Douglas. No. Now, I am in the news business, so I'm going to ask a question, but I don't want you to answer it till the very end.
Okay.
That's what we call a tease.
Okay.
What exactly are you saying to Judy Garland in the picture in the back? Don't answer it. That's the tease. Okay? But everybody keep that in your mind. We'll get that at the end. Is that good? Okay. You started taking pictures at 14. And you take pictures every day? What did you shoot today?
I haven't had time to shoot today because I've been too busy. We did a lecture this afternoon, and we were at the Chanel Gallery this morning. No one's given me time to lift up my camera, but I do have a camera with me. I never go without one. You see, even when I'm an imposter. And it's one of the new cameras. I can set it manually if I want, so I always have a camera with me. I would be incomplete without it. Anyway, I was not supposed to answer.
You can answer that one.
It's already done.
Okay, good. And I was very excited when you started. You talked about the fact that you liked Orlando.
Oh, absolutely.
And what did you like about it when you got here?
Well, I've been here on more than one occasion. I've been here for different events. There's a PMA is a Photographic Manufacturers of America. They've had different events here, and I came here for some events sponsored by Canon and some others for HP that I was here for. You know, not in the city, or heart of the city as we are here, but every time I'm here, I come away thinking what a great experience and how lucky all of you are to live here. You live in the heart of about the best place in the world. And people really would love to be in your shoes. But they frequently never quite manage it. But you are either born or live here or you've come here, and you're very fortunate. So that's what I see here, and I feel the warmth that comes from you and the interest in what I do. And I'm just a guy with a camera, and I've had a lot of fun, but it's about that simple.
Well, let's talk about the fun, and let's talk about the celebrity photographs in the back, because most of the celebrities on the walls in here from the Italian cinema, a lot of people in the room probably don't know who all of these celebrities are, but all of the ones in the back are unmistakable. And the ones that I've enjoyed the most I should say, are the ones where people are having fun. Faye Dunaway in the car with you. That couldn't look more fun.
Can I tell you the story of that?
Please do.
Okay, Faye Dunaway. I was working with her. It happens to be in Italy, and I don't know. Everything does not come back to Italy, but it happened to be that she was making a film with Marcello Mastroianni years ago in Italy, and I was working for Look magazine. The year was about 1970, And I was driving her to the film set one night, and she says, you know what I really like to do? I love to drive fast in these little cars. And Francoise and I had rented a little, what they called a Spider convertible, little Fiat with the, the top would go down. And so the next day I said to her, let's go out and make a picture that will create your passion for going fast. And so what I did is very simple. I picked a stretch where we could go about 50 or 60 miles an hour down the highway. And a little crazy, but this is what photographers are all about. So I took a camera with a wide-angle lens, and the top was down. We were going about 60 miles an hour. I'm driving down the highway, and I'm photographing Faye reaching up to the sky and enjoying herself and laughing and screaming and having fun. Because life should be fun at times, and I wanted to show that. And that was the picture that was made in Howard, the story behind it. And I don't normally put myself in images, but it just happened that way. But fundamentally, I was trying to describe something she had said. She had said, I love to drive fast. And so in my head, I thought, how do I show this? And that's what I did.
In a lot of ways, you are a journalist as well. You began shooting photography on assignment for
Absolutely.
A magazine. It
That's
wasn't
right.
starting necessarily, you started when you were 14 shooting, so I'm sure at that point
I shot weddings, babies, anything.
Exactly.
You put a subject in front of me and I start taking
You're a
pictures.
working man. You shoot everything.
I loved it. I'm not prone to only shoot movie stars. I've done work of all types. If it's photography, I love it. So, and no assignment is too below me. I'd say I shoot my friends' weddings and things to this day. I don't take assignments to do that, and I don't need to do it, but if it's a friend and he or she are getting married, I'm happy to photograph them. And so that's all part of it. And I think that everybody who takes pictures has something to say with their camera and what they do. And we are so empowered with the cameras today. With the new digital equipment, you can barely not get a wonderful picture. And if you look and you see it's not quite right, you say, hey, I'd like to do this better. You can go in and make it better or stronger. And that's very exciting stuff. We are living in a wonderful time of photography. And if you take pictures and care to take pictures and are moved by wonderful images, you have the possibility of making them. One of the points I often feel is we are only as limited as our imaginations. The cameras, the equipment, and what we can do today is like endless, and it's very energizing and very exciting.
I did find that intriguing when I was reading about you as a young photographer. When you began some of the first assignments, you were shooting in color, and you were one of the few young rogue photographers that were doing that. And that's why you were very valuable at that moment. So it seems like you do embrace the new technologies. I read another article about you, how you love the digital photography and you love manipulating photographs. Like I said, I don't know that much about photography, but that struck me as odd because so much of your most famous work was so much more classic, traditional photography. So it's exciting. Well,
it's all photography, Lauren. It's honestly something called Photoshop came out around 1990, 1991. And I had used computers for database and word processing for about 10 years before that. And so I wasn't unfamiliar with computers. I loved them, but I could never really adapt them to photography. So this program came out from a company named Adobe that's called Photoshop. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It's still the principal computer program that's used for photos today. And so I jumped in early, and people thought I was mad. Kirkland's lost it. He's sitting looking at that screen all the time. And the interesting thing is within 10 years, most of those people who criticized me were running to try and catch up. In fact, Francoise and I were in Paris, and I worked with an agency called Sigma there, and a group of photographers got together, and they came over to me, 3 or 4 of them, and they said, Kirkland, this has got to stop. You're going to destroy photography. Like I would single-handedly destroy photography. And it doesn't quite work that way. I don't think my role, my position is quite that significant. But it's just enjoying all of it and participating in it, taking all possibilities. And that's, for me, the joy of living. And also, there's one other thing I've always believed in very strongly is whatever you do, I don't care what it is, go to the max. Because you feel better at the end of the day. And you know, whatever you've done is the best you can do. And I don't care whether it's photography or what it is, but I strongly subscribe to this. And it's never done me wrong. I mean, I want to be as good as I can and put as much into everything as I can. And somebody said to me years ago, that's the only way to be true to yourself. And anyway, that's a basic philosophy, and that carries on into my photography. And I also happen to like people very much. I really do. It's just a genuine feeling. It's all aided with the joy of the camera and taking pictures. And I've said to myself at one time, why do I really want to take pictures? What is the seed within me that says you want to take pictures? And I thought about it. I thought, well, maybe it's an egotistical thing. It could be ego there. But then I went a stage further and I said, as a kid, why I started taking pictures was I wanted to show people what I saw. I wanted to show it my way. And that's what you can do if you have a camera today, too. Show us your way. Maybe you'll have a different angle, a different way, or a different, like a telephoto lens or a wide-angle lens. Maybe you'll do it differently and discover something that's very moving, and that will be the joy of it.
We could be here all night, that's for sure. Let's talk a little bit about the fact that the consummate professional in you and doing your best. And I wish that Francoise was up here with us, because
why don't you come up?
She's like, no way, Jose. We were here talking for a few moments before, and we were talking about the photographs around us here, the homage to Italian cinema. And I will say that you were discussing how difficult it was and the preparation it took to actually recreate each one of these scenes in the exact location and lighting and setup of the original cinema frame. And Francoise said, oh, face it, Douglas, you were a nervous wreck.
Oh,
and she said that just like, oh, you were a nervous wreck. And it was exciting to hear that.
Well, let me tell you why I was a nervous wreck.
Yes, it sounds very difficult.
I feel pretty in command of my photography, but I've been involved in different ways with cinematography and cinematographers for many years. For the last 20 years, once a month I've done a portrait of a cinematographer or director of photography of movies, or a director for Eastman Kodak in a series they call On Film. I've done portraits of them, and in fact that's a wonderful collection that's in the Eastman House, permanent collection. But more importantly, I've become a member of the American Society of Cinematographers. They've never had a still photographer in there before. And it's a very elite organization. So these are in essence, my peers. Now, I do stills, and I've worked on a lot of films, but here I was, the buck stops here. And I knew if I didn't do a pretty damn good job, it was going to fall back on me. So I thought, you know, here I have a set, and we had between 20 and 30 people working with us. They were building sets for us and everything. It was very much like a movie crew. But everything was snapped to me, and it worked brilliantly. But before we went back to Italy to start working on this, I said to myself, I've said this more than once, I said it way back at Marilyn Monroe, I said to myself, if I oversold myself, am I in over my head here? And it's good to question yourself, I think. And I guess
wasn't everybody over their head with Marilyn Monroe? I guess a whole other story.
It's head over heels with her. Yeah, exactly. No, but you know, it's so. Anyway, that's what you were speaking about, Lauren. Francois was commenting that it wasn't all easy, but what we did is we photographed the screen of the movies because I wanted to have the same type of lighting, generally the same camera angles, the same spirit, because what we did, the way we photographed these was I said to the individuals, normally they spoke English, but if they didn't speak English, they usually spoke French, and otherwise we'd have an interpreter, because I do not speak Italian.
So you speak English and French?
Yeah, but not any Italian. And unfortunately, should, because we spent a lot of time there. I've just never had time to grasp it and get on with it. Too busy shooting and doing books and things. But in any case, there was not a barrier of language, put it that way, for a number of reasons. And what I said to the individuals was, you know the role, and I knew it because I'd seen the movie, and you're a professional, and I want you to live it as much as you can. And basically, you're acting here. You're not posing for a picture. So you're watching, in these images you see here, these professionals are being treated as professionals doing what they do best, and that is act. I would give them, as in motion pictures, I'd give them start points and stop points, and I'd sometimes follow them with the camera. Sometimes we had to be locked down for a certain reason, but I would still let them walk through. And if they weren't screaming at me, if they were supposed to be, I'd scream at them to scream. You know, I wanted to hear them. I wanted to feel them. I did not want them to be wooden dummies standing there because I respected them too much. And the interesting thing is their response was to get into it and get really involved and get excited, because frequently still photographers have not treated them that way, more often than not. And but I wanted them to do what they do best. So that's the real story behind all these images.
Well, and the fact that you had to buy a television and rent them all from Netflix and watch them. That's what Francois told me.
Well, you don't really rent them from Netflix. You pay a monthly fee. It's not that tough. And you all can do it anyway. And
they wanted to make sure they could see them well enough, that the color was correct on the television.
There were a few that we couldn't get, but they sent those to us from Italy. And there was nothing we couldn't see.
And the one that was the Vienna? Vienna is the scene.
Which one? The Good, Bad, and Ugly back there? The three?
No, not The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, which I didn't know was an Italian film, for one. The one in Vienna, you had your iPod playing, you said, with some German music?
Oh, yes. That's the Night Porter. And years ago, I photographed Dietrich, and she gave me one of her records, a German record, which, oh, there's a very funny story about that. I got to tell you a quick Dietrich story. So anyway, there was a long time of getting connected, and I was working at Look, and they were buying a book of hers, and they kept suggesting this photographer and that photographer. None of them were good enough, and finally, I was the kid, and they put me out, and I took some pictures to her, and she looked at them, and she hummed and hawed, and she was actually, I think, afraid of being photographed. She was in her early 60s, and finally, my boss called her agent, and said, "You tell Marlene to come in and be photographed by our photographer on Monday, or the deal's off." So she came in rather belligerent. But she did, I did spend some time with her before all of this, and she gave me one of her records, which was a German record, and she played it for me, the American pressing of it, and then she played the German pressing of it, and then it was so much superior. And she said, "I don't know how the bastards do it, but they're better, they're better than we are here in America." Anyway, but when she gave me anyway the record, and of all things, the record happened to be the music that was used in The Night Porter, which was a story that took place in Vienna, which a very funny music, a German friend of mine, Gerhard Ludwig, who's a National Geographic photographer, told me, interpreted what it meant. She's basically in the music, in the Dietrich music, saying, "I'm so unhappy, oh, I'm so unhappy, but if I was happy, it would make me unhappy to be happy."
Sounds German.
So anyway, but that music was playing. I put it on a loop on the iPod, and the wonderful actress who played this role danced to it. In other words, I had strobe lights up there, and I actually was moving with the music with her, and so that's how we did it. And it was very carefully lit. If you look over at that scene, you'll see sort of a misty, smoky background, and that's not an accident, and it's lit very carefully. We did that the night before with strobe lights, and shot it the next morning. And I was mentioning also to Lauren that another very funny thing happened, because I'm a kid who was raised during the Second World War in Canada, and one of my friends who I'd seen the day before, we were talking about this and that, what we do, and he had put the German uniform on, and suddenly I saw this man standing beside me with a swastika on his hat and looking really very threatening. It's a very funny feeling. You do that because that's just a normal reaction. But in any case, that's how all of these were done. I mean, right beside it, there's a picture of the woman playing, and that was Marcello Mastroianni in the original film, and Sophia Loren. And that was a film called Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, which is a very funny, wonderful film. And there were so many great scenes in that film, it was hard to select one to do. And we're working with Maria Grazia, who's the actress, on a new project in August. So frequently you end up coming back and working with many of the same people. It's a lot of fun. We have fun. oh, you'd like to have our job, and you can maybe get it, you know, but I'm not giving it up. I'm 75. I have no desire to check out. We're shooting every day.
Douglas, what do you eat for breakfast? I mean...
you know what I do? My secret weapon?
What is your secret brain
weapon?
weapon?
Stand up, Francoise. Everybody in my world says, and to their right, that Francoise is the secret weapon. We work well together. We've been married for 43 years, together for 45, and it's quite wonderful. And we do work as one. We have a couple of assistants, and Francoise and myself, and we're always on the go. A lot will go happening.
Something that I also appreciated about you in learning about you and meeting you for the first time, I said within moments, I get it. The fact that you, as a journalist, were on assignment a lot of the time, and your job was to get someone to pose for you. Your first, Elizabeth Taylor.
Okay.
And you had to get her to pose for you, but you exude trust right off the bat. Is that what it is? What is your secret weapon? Other than this lady over here.
Okay, in the case of Elizabeth
Before you met her.
I will tell you, in the case of Elizabeth Taylor, it was really the first celebrity whom I photographed. It was just honesty, complete raw honesty, because I felt very vulnerable, and I was very young, and I had nothing else to say. And quickly, I'll tell the story. If you heard us, if you were at the event this afternoon, I mentioned it too, so please forgive me for repeating it, but just to tell you, this is how I launched into photographing celebrities. At Look, I was hired to photograph fashion and to shoot color photographs, because a lot of their older photographers didn't shoot color photographs very well, and it was 1960, and it was the time of youth, and that's why I was one of the two first photographers they'd hired in 12 years. So, and that's where I was. So I did shoot fashion, and we were based in New York, and I flew to LA, actually to Northern California. I was shooting bathing suits on a beach, Pismo Beach in Northern California, and I got a phone call from my boss in New York saying, Elizabeth Taylor has not been photographed in 2 years. Had double pneumonia. She'd been out of circulation, but she said that she'll give us an interview, and she said, however, no pictures. But what I'd like you to do is go to Las Vegas with our movie editor and see if you can persuade her to let you photograph her. Well, again, I did my best.
How old were you at this time?
Oh, 25, 26.
25. Okay.
And so anyway, Lauren, I'm going to ask for your help here, basically. And very simply, I sat quietly during the interview, because that's what photographers are supposed to do, not interrupt, let the journalist have control. And at the end, if you give me your hand, I went over.
Still sweaty.
Yeah. I went over to Elizabeth at the end, and I was standing up, and I looked her in the eye, and I said, Elizabeth, it's been nice to meet you. And I hadn't really spoken with her at that point. And I kept looking in those violet eyes, and I said, I'm new with this magazine. Could you imagine what it would mean to me if you'd give me an opportunity to photograph you? And I kept holding her hand.
Oh, aren't you cute?
No, she did not. She was more guarded than that. She thought she'd never be released if she didn't answer. I kept shaking. And then she said, okay, looked right at me with the same sincerity, and I was speaking to her, and she said, okay, come tomorrow night at 8:30. Well, I did, and I photographed her, and it was a great triumph. It was my first cover on Look, and it ran on Elle, it ran on Stern, it ran all over the world, and it made news. And that was what launched me into shooting celebrities. And following that was in June. The following September, just to give you an idea of the way things worked at a picture magazine, they put me together with Judy Garland, and I traveled for 1 month. And that picture back there is one of the last pictures that I was working on with Judy. And so to get back to
you can tell that, all right, I think we've waited long enough. What are you saying to her in that photograph?
You know what I'm saying? I had been with her for a month. We'd been in LA, we'd been in Toronto, we'd been in Washington, D.C., we'd been in Berlin when she opened Judgment at Nuremberg. And what I was talking with her about, I'm being very sincere here, is I was talking about the hard life she had. But she did have a very hard life. And the picture that you don't see, that you saw if they were at the projection this afternoon, was that she ended up crying, really crying. And I was frankly, I was talking downbeat to her, and I had somber music playing and everything. And I I don't know that I intentionally did it, but I didn't realize she'd go into such a state of tears. And I had my camera about as far away from her as you are with a long lens on it, and I photographed her when she started crying. I am a bastard, aren't I?
Well, clearly people are comfortable with you, though. I mean, that was part of it.
Yeah, I think generally people are comfortable. Nobody seemed to get upset with me. And
has everybody seen the Marilyn Monroe pictures? Yes?
I wish we had it on the wall here or something.
I do too. Well, you know, and she seems very comfortable with you, Douglas. How was that? Now, I know you've written, there's a whole book about it, right?
Yeah,
A Night with Marilyn Monroe.
Actually, that book has been done in about 5 or 6 languages, too. It started.
Of course it has.
Started in Italy, and then was in Germany, France, and English finally in America. You know, that's interesting because here I was traveling for a month with Judy Garland. Then there was Dietrich and Shirley MacLaine and a few others in there. And in November 17 of 1961, I was together with Marilyn because it was the Look magazine's 25th year, and they wanted a special shoot with her, and that's when that image was taken. And quickly, people say, what was Marilyn like? She was many different people. I'll tell you very quickly. The first night I met her was with 2 of my colleagues, and I was taken to a secret place she lived in because she was had been ill. They've always been ill, it seems. Anyway, she wanted to be photographed again, and she had broken up with Joe DiMaggio, and so she was unmarried at the time, and her health was coming back. And there's some interesting sidelines. I don't normally talk about this, but I think you might, especially the ladies in the audience, might be interested in this. Apparently, I talked with her agent, and she was never totally happy, because when she was very happy about this evening, because since she'd been ill, she'd lost a lot of weight. The strange thing is, what disturbed her was her breasts had become smaller, which is normal in losing weight. And yet, if she was her full size, her breasts would be the way she thought she'd be. In other words, she'd never be happy. She wanted to be 2 different people, almost. In any case, that was part of the dilemma, but she was like the girl next door. I expected her to be like a giant on the screen that I'd seen in my little town of Fort Erie, where I grew up, with 7,000 people. But she was like the girl next door. I was sitting you and me talking and just having fun, and she would laugh easily, and it was like a person there. And she said, you know, I had my 2 older colleagues there, and I was afraid to be like this dirty young kid. I mean, I really wanted to get something with some pizzazz in it. I felt that was the right thing to do, especially in 1960, and this is Marilyn Monroe, and look who she is, and I thought that people would really like this. But I was somewhat afraid to even divulge some of my thoughts in my mind. I'm the kid who went to Sunday school and all that sort of thing, you know, and so I'm not going to say Marilyn Monroe, strip it off, baby. No, that's not me. Never has been. And what happened was we talked about all the things we could do, and at the end of the evening, she said to me, I know what we need to do. She touched my hand. Do I need to hold? Okay, she held my hand. She said, I know
Marilyn
what we should
now.
Do. It's a changing role, you see. You should get the seat up here. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, she said, I know what we should do. We should get a bed, and you get a bed, and we need a silk sheet. Then she repeated, it must be silk. She said, I'll get into it with nothing on, and I know we can do great pictures together. Well, now here I'm the kid from Fort Erie, town of 7,000 people, and Marilyn is as close as we are close, and I have my camera. And it gets to be.
How old were you at this?
Oh, I forget the age. I was 27. It doesn't have anything to do with it, but I mean, it was a supercharged evening. And to make a long story short, I really put all that energy, truthfully, into the lens. And between us, it was a great charge going on in the room, and it really paid off. As people say, that's why there are pictures. And it's quite a group of pictures that are probably of all the people I've photographed, no one interests people more than Marilyn Monroe. By the way, I have a website. We have a website, DouglasKirkland.com. You can go on there and see that and many other images beyond what's on the wall here. So check that out, DouglasKirkland.com. It's very simple to find. And there are probably between 75 and 100 images there. Angelina Jolie, you name it. Most of the people we've been talking about here this evening, including Audrey Hepburn.
We haven't spoken about Audrey Hepburn yet. I mean, she was definitely one of your favorites to photograph. Yes. Do you have a favorite? Or I was going to ask the silly question of who is the most beautiful woman you've ever photographed, in your opinion?
Well, let me answer that in a very honest way. And this is an interesting point from a guy who's 75 and been doing this for 50 years. You know, I've become very analytical in some ways. Beauty is a very fleeting characteristic. We all imagine that someone is perfect and they will always be perfect. And I have a wife who was perfect and is perfect. She's in her 60s, but she's never had a thing done. And just look at her.
Hot.
I mean, that's perfect to me. But beyond that, there have been so many come and go. I've been with Catherine Deneuve at her best. I've been with Brigitte Bardot at her best. Jean Moreau. I've been with Nicole Kidman, absolutely. I mean, Nicole quite recently, actually. And so many of them. But, you know, honestly, the one I love the most is the one whom I'm working with. And if I was photographing any individual, man or woman here, I would be connected at the time of that shoot with you in such a way that we would both be enjoying it and participating. Because as I often point out to students when I'm teaching, which I do occasionally, it's not you with your shiny, wonderful camera that makes the picture. It's you and your subject. Don't ever forget that. And don't spend all your time looking at either the screen in the back of your digital camera or wondering about if it's working. You damn well be sure that it's working, because your role here is to really connect and remain connected. And very often at the end of a shoot with both men and women, we end up jumping up and down and screaming with joy. Did it just 2 nights ago or 2 days ago back in LA during a shoot. And that is characteristic.
And I wonder if young people today, how you feel about the fact that I can't imagine a young person today having the patience or even the work ethic at times to sit and do what you do. And how do we instill that? And how do you feel about that as far as this very instantaneous, snap it, stick it on the web, send it out to thousands kind of atmosphere and environment we live in now?
Well, you know, times change. I've seen lots come and go on many levels, intellectually, aesthetically, technically. You were talking about digital versus film and all sorts of things. But, you know, people change too. And one of the reasons I'm working at 75 on a daily basis and with a calendar, I mean, we're booked for the rest of this year. I can't even believe it myself. I'm going into next February with projects. And we will fit certain things in, but we basically, we have a full calendar. Now, why? Because you adapt to the climate and what's there. And I'm more optimistic rather than pessimistic about young people, because you always have new energies. I mean, listen, I can tell you in the 60s, a lot of people said, oh, society's going to hell, you know, ban the bra, you know, all this sort of thing, stupid things that we were doing at that time. There was lots of good stuff. A lot of people said the society is people are smoking grass. Ooh, that's terrible. It's going to destroy the world. You know, and the world didn't get destroyed by it. You know, these things come and go, and I think there's a lot of positive energy. I do agree, though, on one thing, and the attention span is shorter, which is regrettable. However, most people can be energized if they have some exposure and have somebody explain what is there. Sometimes it's teachers who maybe lack the patience. And I have a friend who has gone to photo school, a full 3 years in a very good school. And I couldn't believe that she, whom I respect very much as a photographer, didn't get any history of photography, because that's, for me, where it all begins. Knowing photography, knowing painters, knowing movies, because that's where the aesthetic stimulation comes from and where your possibilities come from. And for example, I mentioned that a certain photographer had passed on a man, one of the Kappas, Cornell Kappa passed on about 8 months, a year ago. And I told her, and I saw a glaze go over my eyes, and I said, you know, Cornell Kappa, you know the Kappa? And she didn't. And I said, well, you know that her brother, his brother, Robert Kappa, did the great D-Day picture on the beach. These are like really pinpoints in photographic history. And she wasn't even quite sure about this. This is after 4 years at photo school. Somebody's not doing their job in the schools. That's sad. That's not true of all schools, but it was certainly true of her school. And that's where the stimulation comes from. And you know, everybody has energy and excitement if they see a reason. And that's what the possibilities are. And the mechanics of it all work so much better for us today. But you do have to respect what your possibilities are and make the most of it. And I go back to make the most out of every opportunity that you have, no matter what you're doing, because it works for me. I'm sorry, that's a 20-minute answer to a 2-minute question.
Such a good one, though. Thank you. And what I love about you is that you're so passionate, and it's really nice to hear that.